this week's edition of the Transport Vlog. Now, I am not above saying that I don't know something or asking people to fill in the gaps in my knowledge. I think that's what makes journalists good at their job, or bad at their job, depending on the way you look at it. Now, I thought I would impart on you 3 things that the coronavirus has taught me, and hopefully you, through our amazing Euractiv reporting. And here they are. First thing is, gold and transport. Now, if I say to you gold and transport, the film buffs among you probably will think of the following scene from one of the greatest films ever made, The Italian Job. 3 Mini Coopers, $1 million worth of gold, all through a traffic jam. The gold comes in, the Mini Coopers take it, off they go. But how did the gold get there? Airplanes, commercial airliners. Now, many of you may not know this, but the bellies of commercial airliners are not just full of your sandals, clogs, Crocs, any other footwear you want to talk about. It's full of high-value goods as well, and one of those is gold. Now, gold market traders rely on airliners because they're cheap, because they just want to sell their cargo space to make extra money on top of the passenger fare, and it gets there quickly. There's a connected fight between every major hub in the world. Not at the moment. Coronavirus has grounded most air travel, and there's just no way to get gold from place to place. Personal protection equipment is taking precedent over anything as non-valuable as gold in this day and age. We've all seen the pictures of the different efforts of mass diplomacy coming from Asia and other places. Masks, gowns, that all takes precedent over gold. And in a market where time is literally money, the difference between getting a delivery of gold in 24 hours and 72 hours, name your price. That's not the only thing either. Semiconductors, high-value equipment, a very small volume of EU imports come via airliner in terms of volume, but in terms of actual pure value, it's huge. So bear that in mind the next time, whenever that might be, you get on board a jet somewhere and think of the pure value of goods that might be beneath your feet. It's quite an eye-opener. The second thing, coronavirus related of course, is super tankers, the huge ships where you can store millions of barrels of oil. $300,000 a day, probably, at the moment, for you to rent one of those and moor it off the shore somewhere and store your oil. It's the reason why the oil price was so low recently. We've got no way to store it. No one's using oil in the huge volumes that we were using before. Airliners aren't in the skies anymore, we're driving less, public transport is down, industrial processes aren't using as much raw materials. So where do you put it? Those who already had contracts to store their oil were laughing, but those who are relying on a quick storage solution, that's why the price dropped. That's why ship owners suddenly are charging $500,000 a day to rent out their super tankers. Now, market traders who already have a good relationship with the shipping industry probably took this in their stride. Store oil nice and cheaply. Not cheaply, but at least they got somewhere to put it, right? So remember that. Next time you're in the market for a big ship and you've got half a million dollars to spare, you can make a lot of money the next time a huge crisis comes in. And the next time a huge crisis comes in, and our third thing is, remember how fragile Europe's manufacturing system can truly be. Now, players like Airbus, Volkswagen, other car makers, they aren't just grouped in one country or 2 countries. They are across the entire continent, making different parts for different vehicles, different plants. And it all comes together to bring you an Airbus A380 or a Volkswagen Golf, you name it. The Airbus, for example, the wings are built in North Wales, brought by special plane or ship to the south of France. The fuselage is made somewhere else, the landing gear is made somewhere else. Volkswagen make different types of cars in different places, ship different parts of the car to assemble it somewhere else. It's a logistical nightmare at the best of times. And now look at it. Borders are closed, workers can't go to work anymore. This is going to go on for a while. And this isn't just a short-term or medium-term thing. You remember from last year, the huge fuss France and Germany and other countries made against the European Commission nixing the Alstom-Siemens train merger, supposed to create a European champion to take the fight to China's state-owned CCCP train company. Now, a European champion is going to, by necessity, need to replicate some sort of model that Airbus is based on. That's how it works. That's how you get all the countries together. You guarantee employment in different parts of Europe. But if a crisis like the coronavirus happens again, which from all indications is not unlikely given the unexpected nature of how this unfolded, This is the kind of thing that people are going to have to think about when pushing for state aid rules to be relaxed, bigger investments allowed in different companies, because it could all just dry up like that. Imagine if some sort of, I mean, it's already happening with the battery industry, for example. Europe wants to take the fight to Southeast Asia's big battery companies, so when electric vehicles really take over the market, we'll be in a good place to power them ourselves. But if we set up a new industry that is going to have the weaknesses that are currently inherent in the system, that could spell real disaster for any industry that isn't well established and during its sort of fledgling period. So that's the main thing to learn from this, I think, is that the transport system and the wider manufacturing industry ecosystem that Europe has built for itself is fragile and delicate. So they'll remember that when they start talking about industrial strategies in more real terms. So there we go. 3 things, useless trivia in some cases, a nice fundamental look at how the EU will have to work with crises going forward. Thank you for joining me. Keep subscribing, watching, share with your friends, keep reading, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.